stop time for me. Try it.
Oh, hear me time. For Julia.
Just try.
Hear me time, stop now.
We seem to have done it.
He has basically been able to bring 40-ish years of human experience that he has lumped on top of this script over the course of his life that sort of culminates in an ending to this film, which sort of it signals a man that is fully aware of the fact that he is at the end of his life and he is ready to pass the baton on to the next generation of filmmakers. And if this is his final film, which I think it should be, there's a certain beauty to this movie because he's sort of ending his career with this final statement, and this sort of grab bag of ideas. And I think that's where the strength of Megalopolis lies. It's with its ideas, not its filmmaking. This movie is often poorly constructed. It is often confusing. It is very badly edited. And contains some really awful acting performances. But it is a movie, I think, that can prove worthwhile if you think about it beyond how entertained you are in the moment, sitting there in the theater, and you just sort of start deconstructing it after the fact. So yeah, I mean, it's not the most fun movie to watch. It is occasionally just completely confounding, but this is a movie that deserves to be studied, after the fact. When we think of Coppola's entire career, this is sort of the period that we need to put on that conversation. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck, and this is episode 53. After a grueling journey to get to a theater near you, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis has landed. In the decades it took to get made, the film had financing issues, technological hiccups, troubles finding distribution, allegations of a handsy director, and a very bungled marketing campaign. So the big question is this all just the price of admission for an unadulterated work of artistic ambition? Or is this film going to be forever known as Francis's Folly? We're going to get to that main event a bit later, but first, we're going to have some Emmy Awards post-op. We're going to be talking about everything else we've been watching in the watch list. And as always, we'll wrap up the show with the Mentionables. If you like what we're doing here at TNS, please do thumbs up on the video. Please do subscribe. But for a bit of housekeeping here right off the top, I've got a minisode on the channel. It's all about whether you can predict when and where new movies are going to drop on streaming services. So go watch that, please. Also, in the coming days here, next couple days, there's going to be a bonus episode, minisode on the channel, where I'm going to reveal my list of the new horror films that I'm going to try and marathon this October. So please do look forward to that. And then, I guess, as far as that episode is concerned, and because we are on the eve of October 1st when this episode comes out, Chuck, do you have any, spooky related plans for this October, media or otherwise?
not as hardcore as, the past. Between
Okay.
November and Luca, we have to be a little more discerning about what we put on the TV. So, like, I can't just, watch, you know, a lot of gore, or even because November was scared of Mewtwo at the beginning of of Detective Pikachu, so we
Okay.
couldn't watch Detective Pikachu for the longest time
Hmm.
because her sensibilities are such. But I'll let you know that we've been pre-gaming Halloween by watching a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas. Even
Hmm.
even throughout all of September, it's what we've been watching. But honestly, I think I'm
Nice.
going to introduce November to Halloween Town,
Okay.
the
That's a
series
good
of
one.
movies from the Disney Channel. Yeah, those are
Hmm.
classics, and they're even though the villain in that first movie is kind of scary looking, but it's
Yeah,
easy to swallow. You know?
I was always, I think, the most afraid in that first one. I don't think I ever saw the others, but in that first movie, I was always afraid of like the skeleton cab driver guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know why, but it was just scary looking, I thought.
definitely.
Mhm.
But honestly, if I can see it though, if there's like one like peak spooky month movie that I want to see, if I'm not sure when it
Mhm.
comes out, I need to find out. But in a
Mhm.
violent nature, I really want to
Mm.
see that somehow.
That is on that's on Shutter now.
Okay, so there is
It
a
is on
way.
Shutter.
There is a way.
Hmm.
Um, but in other news, I guess we'll, as my son keeps dropping his bottle and playing the "Uh-oh" song over there. Uh-oh as well. Dame Maggie Smith died, and that's very sad. She had been battling cancer while they were filming the last Harry Potter movies. So I was actually
Okay.
surprised to hear that she had only died now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was pretty old, yeah. Yeah,
Pretty old,
89.
but an accomplished actress of the stage and screen. She did win an Academy Award for the Merchant Ivory production, A Room with a View. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
Basically, it's just about this like girl, I'm not sure on the era. Like it might be like late 1800s, early 1900s, and
Mhm.
she's like on a holiday with Maggie Smith, her like governess, like chaperone, and
Mhm.
then the guy that was in Warlock. God, what's that actor's name? He died recently too. Um, he just kind of
Yeah, I can't remember.
he just kind of shows up and starts courting her, and they fall in love. But then you got Maggie Smith just kind of like trying to stage manage this like scandal that's
Mhm.
brewing, basically. But yeah, it's a Helena Bonham Carter. Yeah, like that's a movie that I actually think of the most when I think of Maggie Smith. But then again, there's always her performance in Gosford Park, and then more
Yep.
recently in Downton Abbey, which is probably how most people outside of the Harry Potter fandom know her. But yeah, she's just another one. She's another one of one that we have lost and we'll never get back because they don't make them
Yeah,
like they used
she
to.
Yeah, I think most people like the touchstone for our generation is probably Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter. But for me, I think the first thing I ever remember seeing her in was she played old Wendy in Hook.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's kind of what I remember. And she's just one of those actors that because she did die when she was 89 and she's been around for so long. She's one of those actors that has seemed like an old person for my entire life. Like she's
Yeah.
never seemed young to me. It's kind of like Ian McKellen, where it's like this guy has been around so long and he's been old for so long that he just has I can't picture them as being young really. And so yeah, it's just one of those people. Yeah, I think I was looking at her IMDb. She had over 90 credits, so
Jesus.
that's quite a lot. And yeah, definitely will be missed.
She's got some bangers out there like Nanny
Hmm.
McPhee, or unless
Yeah.
I might be conflating because I think actually that's Angela Lansbury, another one of those people who has been decrepit and ancient her entire life.
Yeah.
But transitioning off, the Emmys happened. I didn't even notice. So tell me what happened, Matt.
Yeah, so I did end up watching these, and I think, I mean, what happened was what was expected to happen pretty much. Shogun and the Bear, they didn't quite sweep as expected, but they both still did very well. Baby Reindeer was the most consistent winner in the limited series. Um, and I think this is kind of what happens when the popular choices also translate into the correct choices, for lack of a better phrase. Um, but yeah, biggest all around surprises this year. Probably Hacks beating the Bear overall for comedy series. And I think that's just kind of a side effect of the fact that we only got the last Emmy Awards only happened about 8 months ago because of the writer's strike delay. And so the thing about the Emmys is it always takes place every September, and that it's so late in the year. And because of that fact, a lot of people think that we're honoring the most recent seasons of shows, but in all actuality, you're actually honoring the last season that happened. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of what happened with The Bear, where because this award show happened so late in the year, the Bear being nominated, this is for season 2. This is for the season that everybody loved.
Yeah.
It's not season 3, which was much more divisive. And so people have season 3 of The Bear in their mind, but they're actually honoring season 2. And so
Yeah, like
I think
the
that worked.
episodes like Fishes one, like for like direction
Yeah.
and such like that.
Mhm. So, I mean, I think that was working against the show because people have sort of the third season in their mind. And yeah, other surprises, I guess, sort of included Billy Crudup winning for the morning show and its only win. And yeah, I don't even understand who watches that show. It's just such an antiquated view of what prestige TV is. Like that show, it makes me think of a show that's like plucked out of like the year 2010 and then placed in our current year because it's so like just blah. It's
Yeah.
like a wannabe Aaron Sorkin. That's sort of what my feeling of the show is. I tried watching it once, but I couldn't get into it.
And it's like the only thing that makes it, I guess, like feel more like Apple's approach generally is we're gonna put movie stars in our TV shows. And you didn't quite have that to that degree. Like Jeff Daniels being in the newsroom is way different than like Reese Witherspoon and like Jennifer Aniston doing the morning show. If I'm remembering the casting of that show right. Even like
Yeah.
Billy Crudup himself, he seems almost too good for television. And I haven't watched it at all. Like I only see the commercials when I'm like watching other things on Apple that actually are interesting. And
Yeah.
like that new Presumed Innocent adaptation. I need to check that out. Like that's been on my
Yeah,
mind.
same.
But yeah.
So I gotta ask you about this one because I don't have any experience with this. But one of the probably biggest upset of the night or not even upset, but just surprise, was this Liza Colin Zayas beating out like Meryl Streep and Carol Burnett to win Best Supporting Actress for The Bear. Yeah, what do you make of that as somebody who watches The Bear?
Let me remember who she is. Liza Colin
She's like an
Zayas.
old
Yes. No, she
Mexican actress.
Yeah. And in the context of the show, her story has always been like we never got to like until this most recent season. It's funny that this is season 2 she's being awarded for, but her best work in the show is happening now, in my opinion. Because I think is it during season 2 she and the other old head that were at the meat shop when his brother owned it. She as a character and like and the performance we get out of her, it's like she used to have a job doing like something kind of white collar. Then she got laid off during the financial crisis, and his brother hires her and gives her a job, and she's truly trying to make something out of herself and to be more than just a line cook, and so she, like, when she's given this opportunity to educate and better herself during season 2, in season 3 you kind of see the struggle hitting it, the pressure, the weight of it, and the difficulty that comes with trying to redefine yourself later in life, and when compared to like the passion and energy and complete commitment and willingness to do anything that you get from Carmi and like other, all the younger characters, like their lives are all ahead of them and they are locked in. And seeing I guess like the rubber hit the road for her character really gets good drama out of it, and a really good performance. So I think it's great that she won. That is pretty exciting. But I think season 3 is actually what she deserves it for, not season 2. It's kind of funny that that's just the way the calendar works, in that regard. Because I am still a contrarian. I haven't reviewed it officially, but I just want to say that season 3, I liked it, and I liked its ambiguities, and I know that people kind of just got turned off by the slog of the chaos in the kitchen, and like there wasn't a lot to feel good about throughout the season. Like everything was just so manic, but I think that was more true to what was being experienced by the characters. So maybe it'll get reassessed by the time next year's Emmys roll around and we're actually thinking about that.
Well,
quick say hi, honey.
Oh, she wants to come in.
Yeah.
Hello, November.
Okay, now Matt's gonna talk, honey.
So yeah, I mean the big winner of the night, of course, was Shogun. It did win dramatic series, and then it also won for both the lead actress and actor. And then of course it just killed at the Creative Arts Emmys. Before the main ceremony even happened, the show had already essentially become the most awarded single season of television ever. And so as we do this post-op of the Emmys, my sort of big question is, do you think that for season 2 of Shogun, do award wins and nominations translate into any sort of material change for season 2 of Shogun, in your opinion, as far as like, does season 2 get a bigger budget now, or do they like go back and look at all the scripts and say, oh my God, we need to rewrite all this stuff because we need to win awards again? Or is there any, increased pressure on season 2 or anything like that, in your opinion?
Well, I am of the opinion that season 2 of Shogun is a thing that should not be, and we should be getting, and we should instead be getting like Taipei or not Taipei, Taipan. Is that what the like
Taipan, yeah.
Yeah, Taipan is like the next, like one technically that they actually have material to work from. And like that would be the bolder thing to do, but then you lose the built-in, relationship that the audience has with these characters. So I would anticipate that there might be rejiggering what they have already and saying, hey, we need to have more money, we need to have more epic scale to this thing, and for better and worse, because it might work out really well, or it might cause them to completely faceplant and lose some of the charm that they have working for them, because they're going to be trying too hard. But then again, they're already trying too hard to begin with by making a second season of something that's it's all sealed and delivered. And
it's done.
If we had our druthers, but
I wish. But yeah, just to I guess to wrap up here, to speak about the ceremony itself a bit. It was mostly pretty boring. I did end up watching the whole thing. There were no daring, no cool speeches, no controversies. The most interesting thing that happened was the device that makes the microphone like raise and lower based on who's talking on the stage wasn't working. So certain people had to like get on their tiptoes to reach the microphone, and certain people had to like stoop down really, really low. And so I mean that was like the funniest, most interesting thing that happened. Otherwise, it was a pretty boring award show. The hosts were Eugene and Dan Levy, and they were essentially a non-presence. They were just kind of they were there at the beginning and they were there at the end, and then they kind of just disappeared.
They are good for like a single awards introduction and like a single skit at a ceremony. That just they have nothing else to do. So I'm not surprised that they were non-entities. Because like, I don't know, but who even wants to host this shit anymore? Like there's nothing to be gained from it. Like
Well, the one thing that has me sort of, my eyebrows raised for the Globes is that the Globes, I think, happen in January. And I don't know if you saw who they're having host their awards show, but they're definitely going with the Ricky Gervais route again, because it's the oh God, I'm blanking on her name now, but that one woman stand-up comedian who did really well at the roast of Tom Brady.
is that Eliza Schlesinger?
No,
Nikki
Nikki
Glaser. Yeah.
Nikki Glaser. And so they are definitely going the controversy route again, because they know that's the only way that makes them relevant, is if they have, the headlines the day after the awards show are just, complaining about how offensive the host was. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to the Globes a little bit this year, because she that as a stand-up comedian, Nikki Glaser seems to thrive on controversies. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, a female Gervais, could work out well. But like I rewatched his 2020 Globe speech that like caused Tom Hanks to like have a conniption fit. And like that, like they'll never ever top that unless they completely take her off the leash and just let her go ham. But yeah, whether or not she'll have the balls to do that is a different question.
Yeah, we will see.
We will see. Well, that's good for Shogun. Like I don't give a shit about Baby Reindeer. I'm never gonna watch it, and I don't understand. I don't understand, Matt. But we're probably gonna get Baby Reindeer, the following saga or something like that, because God. It is, which would be terrible. But speaking of sequels, this long-awaited sequel has been teased by Disney Plus for months. Like November and Angie both have been trolled by the Disney Plus app, making them think it was already added. But Inside Out 2 is finally on the platform. This is like the only like golden shining light Disney has had in years, because it's made $1 billion at the box office. And in general, everyone seems to be happy with it. And after seeing it, well, yeah, there's a reason why everyone seems to be very happy with it. It's more of the same. They don't do anything, like weird as far as like adjusting the characters or what like the spirit of the movie is about. You get a new batch of emotions, and you get to see, like a new conflict kind of arise, and a new deeper analysis of the human psyche as it relates to this interpretation of it. And ultimately it gives you a very satisfying and like pleasing conclusion, to its narrative. And it does so without having like villains, it's all just, like there's quote unquote antagonists. There are people who are driving the plot towards a negative, conclusion that the other characters want to avoid. But in general, it's inoffensive, and it just does its thing, and it, does it in a way that, doesn't alienate anybody, which is the most important thing. Because I don't know if you've heard the scuttlebutt. But keep in mind, it's like, who knows how much of this is true. But the scuttlebutt is that they were going to, like outright like say that, because like the main like driving thing happening is that Riley is losing her friends because they're going to a different high school, and she's worried about having her people, because she doesn't want to be alone. So she thinks that, oh, if I do really well at this hockey camp and get on this really good team, that I will make new friends where I'm going. And the scuttlebutt is that the original intention was to actually have it be that, oh, Riley's a lesbian and she's really attracted to these other girls and wants to date her. And they were gonna, kind of make it culture war bullshit. But that just may be the culture war bullshit wanting to create a win for itself by like pointing to the success of them like not going in that kind of a direction. Because if they had done that, it would have probably sent a lot of people away from the theater. Because for a family film, for better or worse, no matter how you feel about it, that's just true. You gotta, okay, now don't stretch your arms too much, otherwise it will fall off again. I can't tighten it any tighter.
So is there going to be a third?
They could. They could. I mean, we could have Inside Out movies till the end of time.
Yeah,
we could see.
They would find a way.
Those documentaries about kids growing up, where Michael Apted just visits them every 10 years of their lives, just to check in on how they're doing. We could do that with this. We could see her in college. We could see her, getting married and that kind of thing. We could see her confronting the death of her father, and then her eventual death herself in the far future, in some kind of a robot holocaust. Who knows? But ideally, do we need another one of these? I don't think so. Just like we didn't need another Incredibles movie, and that sequel was kind of middling, we didn't really need a sequel to Inside Out. There's a reason why we haven't gotten any more Up or Wall-E movies, because they at least have the magnanimity to admit that they really shouldn't go there. They were there's nothing more to do. And I guess they can keep coming up with different, characters like Anxiety, whose whole deal is that they just want to come up with every single worst case scenario to keep Riley safe. And then everything falls by the wayside because all the other needs and emotions, are pushed away in favor of, Anxiety's concerns. It's just like with Joy in the first movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Inside Out.
I have, yeah.
Okay. Yep. I've seen it way too many times lately.
Oh, I bet, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting if they decide to do a third one, because that seems to be Disney's MO now going forward, is they're gonna just keep doing sequels now because they've had such a bad couple years at the box office. And I feel as if once you start getting into the age that she is now, you have to start dealing with some pretty uncomfortable questions where like what what are we gonna do about you can't make an Inside Out 3 and have Riley's first sexual college experience, what I mean? There are certain things you can't do when she gets to the age she's about to get to. So they should probably leave it as is.
We stopped following Andy once he went to college too, You're exactly right. Moving on in the watch list here, you were able to check out one that's been on our radar for a while here. What You Wish For. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, they dropped this one on Hulu a couple days ago, so I gave it a watch. Really, really liked this. This was a really great sort of small budget thriller film, starring Nick Stahl, who it's when's the last time you saw that guy? I think literally he was playing the yellow bastard in Sin City was the last thing I remember him in. But this one's directed by Nicholas Tomney, who hasn't directed a movie since 2010's The Perfect Host, which I don't know if you remember that movie, but
I do.
Yeah, it was the movie in which David Hyde Pierce plays an absolute psycho as he was trying to sort of shed his Niles image after Frasier ended. But yeah, this one is it's basically about a guy who's invited to stay at a lavish villa in South America by his friend who he knew from culinary school. And now they are both professional chefs. and he goes to this villa, and it's just extravagant and lavish and just amazing. And he sort of prods his friend like, hey, what are you doing here? Why are you able to afford this? Like, how can you stay at a place like this? And he's basically able to pry out of his friend that he is the private chef for an organization that flies him around the world to basically cook like 5-course meals for ultra rich people. And his next group of clients is due to arrive in a couple days, and he's basically preparing the menu. And they basically lead you the movie leads you to believe essentially that he is cooking, he's the private chef for like the cartel essentially. But I will say that is not what it is, and it
Oh.
is much, much worse,
Oh.
And
Oh.
so,
That's okay.
yeah, it's pretty wild, and so, that is kind of, well, actually, I'll give a little bit more of the plot because this all happens in like the first 10 minutes, but basically, the next day, Nick Stahl's character, he wakes up from a night after partying with his friend, and he finds his friend in the villa's entryway, strung up from a noose, dead. Like his friend is dead, and he's hanging from like the entryway of this villa. And this all happens in the first 10 minutes, so I'm not spoiling too much, but
It's in the
that is
trailer,
sort of,
yeah.
yeah, it's in the trailer. That is the setup for the movie, and I'll leave it there though, because this is the type of movie that there are twists, there are turns. This is the type of movie that just keeps piling things on and piling things on that could go wrong, and you just keep thinking, okay, now the shit is gonna hit the fan. But then they start spinning another plate, and it's got all these plates spinning, and you're like, okay, eventually stuff has to happen, or like something needs, something has to give. And yeah, that's kind of where I don't want to give more away because it really goes places. And yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience, especially, I mean, it's on Hulu now. You can go watch it for the price of your subscription, and I fully recommend it.
I am probably going to watch this as soon as we log off of this
Mhm.
recording because I am completely sold.
Yeah,
I
it is
need
great.
to know because
Yeah.
yeah, like because I love movies like that just keep on like yes anding themselves, like not towards oblivion, but towards a more perfect ending and a rising experience. A
Mhm.
movie that was quite like that, that what I recently reviewed was Strange Darling. It did a really good job of giving you something and
Yeah.
then going aha, but like we're just gonna keep going up. So that's exciting.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to check that out. What I cannot recommend anyone does, however, is something that I did because I was home once again with some sick kids. Found myself with a lot of free time, and I decided to watch the latest season of Monster from the impresario Ryan Murphy. This guy that can find a way to make anything gay. Even if it's incestuous, he does it. It doesn't matter what the topic is, he will find the homoerotic angle. It made a lot more sense in the Dahmer show, but here we have Lyle and Erik Menendez, the Menendez brothers. They were the O.J. Simpson case before the O.J. Simpson case, and the weirdest thing that occurs here is in like towards the back end of the series, you see the crossover occur because when OJ was locked up at the LA County Jail, his
Oh yeah.
neighbor was one of the Menendez brothers, and that's that's really where the thing kind of falls apart because it reminded me of a better show that was that involved a lot of the same characters like Dominique Dunn, who had been performed by the same guy that did Bert Cooper in Mad Men initially, and now
Mm.
is being played by Nathan Lane, who gives you nothing, and if you care at all about fidelity, and truth behind the facts of this case, this is not the place to go, because like pretty much everybody out there, even like people who believe that they did it, also think that this show just does too much in, speculating, as to what was going on with these guys. Because I know most of what I know because of the last podcast on the left series on this case. And they were utterly, completely like dismissive of the idea that their father, Jose, had molested them. They were like, this is bullshit. This was just what they said to try and get sympathy for this murder that they obviously did and were utterly unrepentant for. And this show tries to strive for objectivity a little too much because it gives a lot credence to realizing the question of this show, I guess, ultimately is, who was the monster here? Was it Jose Menendez, as played by blanking on his name? Can't believe I'm blanking on this guy's name. Javier Bardem, really good job. He's the reason to watch this, if there is one, because the guys playing the brothers and the writing that they are given to perform is really terrible. Like, they are no good. But every time Jose is on the screen, I was interested. Like, that was the best stuff. Because he's kind of mercurial. And yeah, he probably was an asshole. And they don't outright show him abusing the boys. But what they do show is this rumor that Dominique Dunn utterly believed in, which is that the brothers were incestuous between themselves. And that's why they killed their parents. It's because their parents found out that they were, having sex with each other. And there's all these strange moments, like right after the murder, they're like in a car, like going like, "Woo, we did it. Yeah." And one of the brothers like grabs the pecs of the other brother in excitement. And then he like stops himself from groping him further. And he's like, "Wait a minute, we got to get rid of our clothes. There's blood on the clothes." It's all over the place. But it is funny seeing, like, when you find out that Lyle's wearing a hairpiece the whole time and what he looks like without it, and in the struggles that they had in jail because you had to have dimes and you couldn't trade anything for dimes. So seeing like their prison experience from their perspective was, interesting. And there's this weird obsession with Milli Vanilli. Like, that is like like a Milli Vanilli song is like the heart and soul of this series. You hear it like 4 or 5 times. And yeah, I don't know. I think they did it. And even if they were molested by their dad and their mom knew about it, it still was a fucked up thing that they did.
Yeah, it's so strange to me. It sounds, I mean, the way you're describing it, it sounds like a softcore porn, like
almost, man. Yeah,
like adaptation of the Menendez story. But yeah, it's just, I'm off the Ryan Murphy train. I am officially off, so I will not be checking this out, and I will not be checking out the Travis Kelce acting debut Grotesquerie either.
Wait, he's in that?
Yeah, Travis Kelce is in that Grotesquerie show, that new Ryan Murphy show.
Oh my God, why? Why is he doing this to us? But what's funny is that, yeah, like the connected universe of Ryan Murphy crime shows, from like network to network, it continues, because now we have American Sports Story, the Aaron Hernandez, story, which has its own homoerotic angle. So it's like everything he goes for is what he knows. And I guess that's fair. But I do think it's funny that, like, yeah, everything is fucked up murder, and there's a homosexual element to it. And I guess as a gay man, yeah, it makes sense. He's trying to tell these stories in an authentic way, but he's like, he doesn't have the actual authenticity that comes from like giving his subjects like the respect they deserve, if that makes any sense. Because he gives these guys way too much license, as far as making their story believable, and then goes completely gonzo with how he portrays their proclivities, and they are very offended. you know, because they are still living. And in the case of Aaron Hernandez, he just has, you know, his baby mama and, you know, like parents to, you know, worry about offending. But yeah, that I'm really curious what that show is going to look like.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on, we got a couple quick hits.
Yeah.
I am just going to say that from like the opening scene of this Penguin show, when he, you know, gets insulted by the Falcone's son, and he just finally just like loses it and guns him down, realizes what he's done, and just goes, "Oh fuck!" Hard cut. I was like, okay, I'm kind of on board for this, even though I was really indifferent going in, I guess. Like, but the Penguin character, you know, even though he was kind of tacked on to the Batman movie, I was infinitely more interested in him and Colin Farrell's portrayal. So I was grateful that we were getting a show. But what do you make of the final product, you know, as we're getting it week to week?
Yeah, I mean, we've only gotten the premiere thus far, so this is, you know, going off of one episode. I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but I feel like I made a mistake rewatching the Batman before diving into the first episode of this, because
I did not do that.
Okay, yeah, it sort of unfairly set this show up in my mind, because when you look at the Batman, you know, it's a, you know, regardless of what you think of it on a story level or pacing wise or anything like that, it's a beautiful movie. It's, you know, it's shot well, it looks great, expensive. Its version of Gotham is so well realized, and the production design is immaculate. And then you switch over to the Penguin, and everything looks worse. You know, it looks cheaper by comparison. It's like shot way less thoughtfully. The CGI vistas are a lot like faker looking, and all of the A-list actors just have suddenly disappeared from this universe except for Colin Farrell. And so I don't know. I think that if there is a reason to watch this, it is because of Colin Farrell. He is still just as good as he was in the Batman movie. I feel like I spend half the show just sitting there trying to find Colin Farrell underneath all the makeup, and I just can't do it. He blends in so well into that character. And otherwise, the show is essentially, I mean, it's The Sopranos starring the Penguin, and it's the show it's cribbing a lot of its plot elements from the comic book The Long Halloween, which, it's funny, this show that we're doing today just sort of happens to be a lot of stuff that is very related to each other just by chance, because this show is cribbing a lot from The Long Halloween, which itself was cribbing a lot from The Godfather and Coppola. And so, yeah, it's all one big cycle. And I don't think the show is bad by any means. I think it actually is mostly good. Like it has a compelling story so far. It has a compelling setup. But yeah, just don't go in expecting the Batman, because that is not what you're getting here. And don't expect Robert Pattinson's Batman to show up, because I can tell you it's not going to happen. Like, he did not show up to film a cameo for this show.
He is too good for that, you know, and they can't afford that, you know, either. Because you know what I heard? I don't know if this rumor is true. Apparently, initially, they wanted to cast either Seth Rogen or Jonah Hill as the Penguin in the Batman.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And the only reason it didn't happen was because they wanted as much money as our Pats got. And so we got Colin Farrell because he was willing to go all out for it and get what he could, because, you know, pickings were slim. You know, even though he's respectable and, you know, available. You know, so it worked out well. But God, can you imagine Seth Rogen Penguin?
No.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Because if there's one like other like I guess, show people should have in mind when they come into the Penguin, it's Netflix's Daredevil. It's that level. It's not quite the same level of hokey, but as far as production value and what you're getting as far as the stakes are concerned, it's like, what if you tried to make The Sopranos with those kinds of sensibilities, and if you
Mhm.
made it about Penguin, set it in Gotham, had that crime family universe as its backdrop, and yeah, hopefully the cameos are limited. Like, unless, I don't know, maybe they could convince Catwoman to show up at some point.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she
Maybe.
is. I mean, she would make a little more sense because she is, more involved because Carmine Falcone in this universe was her father, and so that I could see. But yeah, just it would be so lame if just this entire show there's no Batman at all. Like Penguin just happens to be getting away with all this crime, and then in like the last episode, it's like, oh, Batman showed up all of
Was
a sudden,
busy, I was.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
there was a breakdown of security at Arkham. Like,
Yeah.
I've been dealing with the Joker. Like, because they do have this like other universe stable of rogues that they are developing, but God
Mhm.
knows what Batman 2 is going to be about. I guess we'll
Yeah.
have to see. But
Yeah, we'll see in like
does this
2028.
is this coming out on Sundays? Is that when it's released?
It is now. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know why they released the first episode last Thursday and now it's moving to Sundays. Not sure what the idea behind that was, but yeah.
Okay. Because I expected there to be an episode available for, like, at least a follow up. But that explains that.
Mhm. Yep.
Moving on now to like the realm of short films. You discovered one that sounds pretty interesting. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, just wanted to touch on this one quick. Last podcast, people might remember I talked about Milk and Cereal, which was a independent free movie released on YouTube that sort of went viral last week or 2 weeks ago. And now this week, a similar thing is happening with this movie. This short film is called The Crossing Over Express. This was posted by the filmmaker Luke Barnett, actually on Twitter, not on YouTube. So you can watch the whole thing on Twitter. It's only 11 minutes long. I'm not going to, because of that fact, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the plot because I'll just explain the whole thing probably. But the story behind this one is very, very interesting. Essentially, he the guy who directed it, his mother died when he was 18, and like a decade later, he got a text from a number he didn't know that just had a YouTube link to a video that his mother had made before she died.
Oh my
That was
god.
basically like explaining, it was her addressing the camera and basically explaining about how like proud she was of him. And so it was very odd. He did find out after the fact that the video came from one of his friend's fathers. And so it wasn't like a supernatural experience, but it inspired him to make this short film. And this is sort of when you're comparing this to something like Milk and Cereal
Yeah.
from last podcast, that movie felt more like, college student, first movie out of film school. And this movie is much more mature. This feels more like I am going to make a movie
Very
to
nice.
process my grief type
Yeah.
film. It is much, much more mature, much more grounded. And so yeah, I gotta send people to watch this. I'll put the link to the movie in the episode description when we post this podcast because yeah, it was good. It was good 11-minute short film.
Is it 11 minutes? Easy to swallow. Yeah, Angie and I
Yeah.
did watch Milk and Cereal, and we really liked it. But
Yeah.
like, after like a certain point, I was like, okay, I get it. When is this gonna end? But I wanted to make sure we watched all of the ad breaks so that those guys could get their money. And I am curious how Elon is compensating this guy if he's getting a lot of traffic. I wonder what the financials are for putting video content exclusively on Twitter. But hopefully it
Yeah.
turns into something more for him, because that sounds exciting. And
Mhm.
because, yeah, this is the future of cinema, man. It's like bypassing all the corporate bullshit and just getting your art out there is the most important thing that an artist can do. Because otherwise, you can wind up, overstretching yourself, like losing your integrity. Because I forget who said it. Oh no, it was Anvil. The band Anvil?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
if you've seen that documentary, there's a really prescient line in there, from like the guy who was like the head of that band, and it's better to own 100% of your creation and like only have 20,000 people know about it than it is to have 20 million people, buy your record or buy your movie and you not have any of it or so little of it that it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
like having that kind of integrity is important, which is, why it's good that this week we're talking about the ultimate passion project of the year, which is the latest and we hope final film from cinema master Francis Ford Coppola, Megalopolis. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah. So yeah, it is very, very hard to know where to start with this film. Um, I will attempt to make sense of it by saying this. Basically, this is my sort of sum up of the movie. It's basically Francis Ford Coppola is reckoning with the destruction of his dreams, but also has a hopeful vision for the future in which a peerless visionary can overcome a corrupt industry. And so, in order to sort of like start deconstructing this movie, you have to know a bit of history. And with Coppola, essentially that involves him writing this script since the early 80s, which is around the time that his production company Zoetrope went bankrupt. And he was really, really losing a lot of his goodwill from Hollywood because of his like legendary 70s directing stint. And so he reimagines his sort of failure to change Hollywood as this modern day new Rome in its waning days. And this would normally probably be like the end of this script. It would normally be probably a very pessimistic view if he had stopped writing the script in the 80s, but he didn't. And I think because of that, this 2024 version of this movie is much more hopeful because he has basically been able to bring 40-ish years of human experience that he has lumped on top of this script over the course of his life that sort of culminates in an ending to this film, which sort of it signals a man that is fully aware of the fact that he is at the end of his life and he is ready to pass the baton on to the next generation of filmmakers. And if this is his final film, which I think it should be, there's a certain beauty to this movie because he's sort of ending his career with this final statement, and this sort of grab bag of ideas. And I think that's where the strength of Megalopolis lies. It's with its ideas, not its filmmaking. This movie is often poorly constructed. It is often confusing. It is very badly edited, and contains some really awful acting performances. But it is a movie I think that can prove worthwhile if you think about it beyond how entertained you are in the moment, sitting there in the theater, and you just sort of start deconstructing it after the fact. So yeah, I mean, it's not the most fun movie to watch. It is occasionally just completely confounding, but this is a movie that deserves to be studied, after the fact. When we think of Coppola's entire career, this is sort of the period that we need to put on that conversation. And so, yeah, overall, I think it's very worthwhile. But yeah, Chuck, what did you think?
It's very earnest, and like I think you're right in that the ideas and what he's trying to make you think and consider is a lot more important than the question of are you entertained? Because yeah, while all the actors are very committed, like good God, it was very unclear what they were trying to accomplish sometimes. And I feel so bad for the editors because they were having to construct something out of this. And I don't and that was probably a difficult thing when you had Shia LaBeouf just improvising and hamming it up and just going completely schizo. And you have John Voight, basically just sleepwalking through the end of his own career, much like my grandma Jane does, in the latter stages of her dementia. The only good line that he delivered, John Voight, was when he's lying in bed at the end and he's like, "Do you like my boner?" Like, that made me bust a gut just because of how out of nowhere it was. But overall, this has a very like Ayn Randian sort of sensibility to it, even though I think she would abhor some of its ideas. But it has that same like Randian hero conflict going on, where you have this great man, this titan of industry, who has the vision and ability to remake the world in his own image and for its benefit. And you have all the other cosmic forces allayed against it. But instead of the real conflict being between Driver and Giancarlo Esposito's character, it just winds up being this completely vapid, like, financial reporter who's just sucked her dick into like the biggest baking family, who's the real villain of the story. Like the arc of it really doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I think it is interesting when you think about, not only like the history of the last 40 years, but like the history that involves some of the actors. The idea that Shia LaBeouf turns into like a populist fascist sort of political figure is so funny when you recall like his "He Will Not Divide Us" period of public art house activism that he would do. And you almost wonder like which ideas were present in the 80s and which ones were added piecemeal over time. And it does make for a very schizophrenic experience. It's, identification of the problems that come from decadence and, degeneracy. It's all very well said, Uncle Frank, but what the fuck do you mean with all these Marcus Aurelius quotes? Like, why are people talking in like iambic tempameter? What's with all the affectations? And I think you're just supposed to not ask those questions and just soak it all up, ultimately.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Ayn Rand, because it's so like there are moments when it is very much Ayn Rand. He's he is cribbing entire passages from like Plato and Socrates and Marcus Aurelius, and just direct quoting like ancient philosophers and politicians. And it's all like a lot of the dialogue is just yada yada humanity, yada yada burden of humanity, yada yada potential for greatness. It's strange how simultaneously political some parts of this movie are, but yet it's so like boringly humanist at times, or like so it's all encompassingly inoffensive, I find, even though it's so like political. It's so hard to grasp. And and you brought up like sort of the piecemeal additions to the movie, and the best thing, like the best way to illustrate how this movie was written over the course of 40 years are like certain references that stand like shoulder to shoulder with each other. Because on one hand, we have a CCCP satellite that for some reason like crashes into this new Rome, and like it kills a bunch of people for some reason. And then it's like never spoken of again. And then, so you have that reference, which was obviously probably, stuck in the script in the early 80s. And then you have America's Got Talent winner Grace Vanderwaal appearing in this movie as like this walking embodiment of virginity with
A
her
literal
ukulele.
vestal virgin, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's appearing in this movie with her ukulele, which that is what she was known for.
Because I had no clue who she was.
Yeah, she was a winner of America's Got Talent probably about a decade ago, and her thing was that she would play her ukulele and she would sing, and so you have like references like that next to this like CCP satellite, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing? It's so strange. And so yeah, I just love stuff like that. That was my favorite scene. I think that is by far the best scene in the entire movie, is that like 3-ring circus wedding where God, I loved everything about that because it was so schizophrenic, and the way it was filmed with all just like the digital camera trickery, and I loved it. And Adam Driver's character going off and doing drugs, and I like that little bit that they do with the invisible rope for some reason, where he is leading Natalie Emmanuel's character on with the invisible rope, and then he cuts it and goes and just does a bunch of drugs without her. That was pretty funny. I like that. But yeah, I don't even know. What did you think of stuff like that? Or what was your favorite?
That sequence is worth the price of admission. Because the other aspects of it, like, I don't know, I expected almost more degeneracy on display. Like, a lot of it is just kind of alluded to, that like Clodius is fucking his sisters, and then those like I don't know, whenever God, what's her name? The Natalie Emmanuel's character. Whenever Julia is hanging out with the her girlfriends, they're just like always like licking each other, like licking drugs off of each other's tits, and just randomly saying like weird things. I don't know. We have an Elsa over here. And but that like still the wedding sequence is where everything kind of comes together and actually clicks, and you're seeing it all work out. I even thought it was interesting how they basically are insinuating that like deep fakes, like, this is the problem of deep fakes. A great man can be shown to be doing something terrible that he didn't do. Which is probably going to be, Diddy Combs's, defense here coming up here in a while. The deep fake technology is why he's, involved in all that. It's like those tapes are lying, Your Honor. But besides that, though, there was a lot of actors who are in here. Oh God. Okay. Solely just so their names could be in the credits in the trailer. Because what was Dustin Hoffman doing in this movie? What was Talia Shire doing in this movie? And like Lawrence Fishburne. I know he should be there. It's cool that he is, but his narration was boring and his character did nothing. Why were they in the movie? Like, they're just window dressing at this point.
Yeah, he was basically just. I mean, they needed a narrator to I guess lend gravitas to all of the title cards that came up. But yeah, it's so strange. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Dustin Hoffman, because he was completely inexplicable. I found probably the biggest offenses as far as casting went were Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah.
I mean, what was he? He's
a nephew.
I mean,
that's what he is. He's a nephew. That's why he's in the movie.
Yeah. And then like James Remar even shows up for like a couple scenes to be like,
didn't even notice he was there.
Yeah, he basically shows up and he says to Adam Driver like, I don't know if we can do this. And then Adam Driver's like, do it. And then that's his role. And so it's just so weird. But yeah, this Dustin Hoffman's character, I think his name is Nush, is the perfect indicator of a script that was rewritten into oblivion, because presumably there's a 4-hour cut of this movie somewhere, and he is a larger part of this movie, in some respect, because we barely know who this guy is, and there's like one scene where he basically offers to kill Claudio, Shia LaBeouf's character. We don't know why. He's just like, "Hey, I could kill him for you," and then the very next scene, he is pulverized in like a building collapse, and then he dies, and he's never seen from or heard from again. And that is legendary actor Dustin Hoffman's entire role in this movie. So yeah, it is such an indicator of just a script that was written and rewritten over decades. And so yeah, it's so weird.
I want to talk about, I guess, some of the technical choices and whether or not
Yeah.
they were successful or not. Because there is some fascinating visual storytelling going on here. Or just like, when he's just barraging you with like images and montage, especially when he's doing his 3-panel sequences.
Oh, yeah.
What did you make of that stuff? Like, was that effective? Or was I just taken up in it because it was something new, to keep my eyes open instead of glazing over?
Yeah, sometimes, I did like it sometimes. Like when there's a scene where the movie is essentially trying to mark the passage of time, and it's doing that 3-panel thing with Adam Driver's character's like blueprints, or like his architectural like drawings, and it's like drawing them as you're watching it, and that was cool. I did like that, but there are certain things which I still don't understand, and that's why this movie is really fun to talk about right now, because the film historians and like the film YouTubers haven't they haven't examined this movie into oblivion yet. So we are still at the point where people are trying to figure out what certain stuff mean, and we haven't gotten to the point yet where everything is just examined and re-examined over and over and over. And so there are certain things that I still don't understand. And one of those things is sort of the 3-panel thing, which you brought up, where there's a montage of like dreidels, menorahs, Christmas trees, people reading the Quran. And so, yeah, what did you make of that? Do you have anything?
I don't know. Because I think
No?
it just might be him looking into the, I guess, the never-ending conflict between all these different faiths, and how they are part of the cornerstone of modern humanity, but they are this crutch holding us back. And it is only through great utopian architectural design that we will overcome this and become a great species, that won't destroy itself through civilization, because these aspects are, leading us to uncivilized things. But we have to be politically correct. We can't say that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are bad for the human species, even though like that is what a humanist would say. Like a universalist, like what's that faith called? I can't remember, but there's like some like almost like atheistic religion that just kind of believes in the Great Spirit, and they would rather just have this like non-denominational sludge of religious belief. And the ending title card of this movie really reminded me of that kind of thinking. So like I think if there's a statement to be made about it, it's that. And like the whole thing with the Elvis impersonator singing America the Beautiful, which really comes out of nowhere. I think it's bemoaning how commercialized patriotism is, and how like expressions of it just ring so hollow, just like an Elvis impersonator is a really poor example of the genuine article that we no longer have and will never get again because it's dead. Like I think there's a lot to read into and mine just from those brief sequences. But what I couldn't understand completely, or at least like I'm still forming my understanding of it, is the time stop.
Yeah.
What is
Mhm.
up with that? Because like it's introduced like with Caesar's introduction, right
Yep.
here. Actually, good timing. And like, what is going on there? Like, what is being said by that? And does it have to do with great men and their ability to be unaffected by time so that they can achieve the greatness that they have within themselves? Is that kind of what it is? It's like they are impervious to the effects of time. They are able to just exist in the now so that they can see like what the present actually is instead of being a slave to it like the other characters seem to be. They'd rather just keep the city the way it is. Is that what they're trying to say?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I was also very just confounded by that aspect, but yeah, I think you're onto something where yeah, it's basically great men, great individuals are not affected by the passage of time. They sort of um live on. There is a point at which he loses his ability to like do the time stopping, and then he sort of gains it back um, through being encouraged by Julia. It's sort of when their romance starts, and I sort of read that as like, you know, I don't know if it needs to be quite as like driven by the sexes as this, but essentially like there are great people behind great men also that have to like encourage them along, not necessarily a great woman
Yeah.
or a great spouse, but just like there are great people behind great men that have to encourage them along, that have to keep them on the path. And eventually um Julia does it too. There is a point in the film at which when she stops time. And so I don't know if what is being said there is essentially that great men can pass on their gifts, or they can share their knowledge. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be exclusive to them,
Yeah.
is sort of maybe what how that is how I guessed that is, but yeah, I was also confounded by that aspect. But I think we're on to something there.
And what the hell is Megalon?
Megalon, yeah. Megalon, yeah, Megalon is his, I guess, building material. And I guess I read that as, it is just kind of his tool to, I don't know, I guess just the thing he uses to make great works, basically, to build his utopia that he eventually builds by the end of the movie, by sort of, I guess, striking a deal with Giancarlo Esposito's character. But yeah, that's all I really read it
Because
as, was basically.
what's not explained until they graft
Mhm.
it onto his fucking face,
Yeah.
just in like those like whispered like exposition in that dreamlike sequence, is that it's a fusion between the inorganic and the organic. So it's like a living
Mm.
metal that can grow. So it's a fusion of those ideals essentially. And that's why
Mm.
his utopian architecture is preferable to just concrete, stone, steel, and glass, because those wear down, they eventually need to be destroyed. This is a something that can grow and continue on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have a good grasp of it there. And yeah, I mean it's basically just the I think that Coppola needed something to get, he needed the means to the ends, and he
Yeah.
knew that he wanted to end the movie with, them building, accomplishing this utopia of like flower buildings and like airport walkways that move by themselves that
Yeah.
you stand on, and then the weird ball things from Jurassic World that we've already seen now. That's another indication that this movie was, written 30 or 40 years ago, is that it has the weird Jurassic World ball things that move people around, I guess, and then move around like pinballs in like a pinball machine.
But that's preferable, like, but how likely is it that this world is just going to wind up looking like the year 3000 in Futurama when it's all said and done?
Yeah, probably.
Because that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to mention was I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. One thing that people haven't quite figured out yet, but I think I may have gotten it, was that when this movie initially screened at film festivals,
oh yeah, I'm glad you brought this
would
up.
they would have a in-person actor get up on the stage, and they would have them with a microphone asking Adam Driver questions, like a interviewer at like a press conference, and then Adam Driver would respond. And of course, Adam Driver's thing was canned. It was all canned responses. But what we found out since then is that Coppola was working with Amazon to create a version of their Alexa AI that would allow audience members to like ask Adam Driver questions. But of course, all of that fell through. None of that worked. All of it fell through. The team was canned in 2022 that was working on that. And so what we end up with is, I think, this scene in the movie where Adam Driver, and I still don't know this for sure. We still don't know which scene it is, but this is my sort of thoughts, is that right after that satellite crashes and like kills a bunch of people and like decimates a bunch of blocks, Adam Driver gives this press conference where for some reason the screen gets really, really small, and it's only in like the bottom of the screen, and there's a press somebody off screen asks him a question, and then he answers it, and then that's kind of it, and then it just moves on to the next scene. So I think I want to say that was the scene in which they originally had this like in-person actor, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a safe assumption, because why else would you shrink the screen like that? Because the only person asking the question is, I believe it was Jason Schwartzman. Like within the movie itself, but which is weird because he's not a reporter. He's like a conciliary to the mayor. So like, why is he the one asking the question? It's a like there is like a Malikian aspect to this movie that we haven't quite acknowledged, where the scenes just kind of bleed into each other, and there's lots of like cosmic and microscopic imagery of things just to kind of bridge the gap between stuff. And that was one of those moments where it's like, why is he just philosophizing after we just saw something catastrophic happen? It's not even quite explained to us what has occurred. Just that they expected the satellite to crash into like Newfoundland, but instead it's crashing into New York City. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for plot reasons. I mean, who knows if there's any bigger idea behind it? But for plot reasons, essentially, it happens because Caesar needs an excuse to begin construction on Megalopolis, and the satellite essentially decimates a bunch of blocks, and then that's how he's able to start construction. And so, I mean, I guess that's essentially why it happened, but yeah, who knows if there's any greater meaning behind it. I don't know, but I'm glad you brought up Malick, because I was reminded of two other elder statesman directors, and that was Malick, in the sense that this, a lot of this movie is sort of stream of consciousness style with, only scraps of certain acting performances, which Malick is really known to do, where, he gets these A-list actors to be in his movies, and then when the movie comes out, there's like 2 minutes of screen time for, people like, Christian Bale or Adrian Brody, Jim Caviezel, people like that. But then I was also reminded of Phil Tippett
Yeah.
because of Mad God, in the sense that it took Phil Tippett 30 years to make the movie Mad God, and that film felt very similar in that it felt like a collection of ideas rather than a cohesive story.
Yeah.
And it felt like something he added to over 30 years. And so yeah, that's kind of what I thought of. But
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm
Mhm.
glad you thought of that. Because we don't have many, cases like this where like a project genuinely has been in gestating for that long. Oh,
Yeah.
he's mad.
No.
He wants a
Yeah,
bottle. I'll have to grab it
I
for him
can
in a second.
guarantee.
Hey, hey.
I mean, I can guarantee this. I mean, this is like a once a decade type of movie.
No.
It's been widely reported now that Coppola did spend about $120 million of his own money to make this. And we are we're not going to get something again like this in a long time. And so people it already is bombing at the box office. I don't know, when you saw it, was there anybody else in the theater?
Not a soul. I was the only
Okay.
one in there.
Same. Yeah. Exact. I can't even tell you the last time that I went to a movie and I was the only one in the theater because even in this area, I'm in the Minneapolis metro area, and even for like the smallest movies or the most independent movies that nobody cares about, I still go to movies all the time, and there is at least one other person there just because of the sort of metropolitan area I'm in. But this was the first movie in so long that I went to, and there was not a single other person. And that that is so sad when you think about it, because yeah, this movie, it is gonna bomb. It already is bombing. We're filming this, on Saturday, 2 days after it has released, and it's doing pretty bad, and that is a shame because this is not something where you're gonna get anytime this side of this decade again. And so yeah, I mean, I guess we can kind of, I guess to sort of begin to wrap us up. I'm glad we got this. I'm glad I watched it. I think that this movie is a lot more positive now, or a lot more hopeful now than this movie was back when it was first conceived in the 80s, when Coppola's production company was in bankruptcy, and his eldest son died in like a boating accident. He was in a bad place when he started this movie, and now he, I think, is sort of going out on a more positive note. And I think that it's good that he got this out. He got this on the screen.
And it's more than what George Lucas is doing in his spare time, let me tell you. Like, that man has
Yeah.
nothing but time and money to, finally make the films I've always wanted to make. And I think he had to sacrifice a lot of his, like, his vineyard fortune, to make this happen. And 1 second, honey, we're almost done. And we'd much rather have him going out with a bang like this than just withering away, whining about the white slavers. You have to rebuke the white slavers to their face at their own game. Show the world how lame they are for not, distributing your work. And I guess thank you to Lionsgate for doing that, because it was kind of up in the air whether or not this was going to be seen anywhere besides festivals. And because this does have real, like, late 90s, early 2000s Euro trash vibes, as far as like the production quality of it, especially in the special effects. But
Yeah.
in total, like, this is probably one of the more exciting, like, movie experiences you'll have, just for the novelty of it. And the novelty actually sustains it. This is a great master getting his last nut, and we should just
Yeah.
let us take it all in the face. But moving on to the mentionables. God, speaking of great masters coming back, to deliver one final thing, Jeff Loeb, apparently, for your mentionable, he finally got his sequel to The Long Halloween out there, but it's without Tim Sale. And I guess,
Yeah.
what do you like? Is this you're just being released issue by issue, or is this like a graphic novel presentation?
Yeah, it is issue by issue. Issue one just came out this past week. So this is called Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween. So I know awful title, but good book. Um, so if people don't know, in the early 90s, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale wrote and drew one of the most famous Batman stories ever, The Long Halloween, and then its eventual sequel, Batman Dark Victory. And let me just say, I reread The Long Halloween before diving into this, and when you're somebody who reads comic books every week like I do, and the act of doing so can occasionally become very monotonous, when you read a truly, once a decade story like this, you feel it. You can feel how great The Long Halloween is as you're reading it. And so, I mean, first off, let me say, go read The Long Halloween if you for some reason haven't.
Yeah.
It's the perfect time of year too. And so Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, they never planned on making the stories into a trilogy. They never planned on making this third entry, but about a decade ago, they started kicking around ideas for this book. And unfortunately, in 2022, Tim Sale died suddenly, I think, or pretty suddenly. And what we're sort of left with is this book, The Last Halloween, which is written by Loeb. And it's going to have a rotating selection of A-list artists doing the individual issues, like Eduardo Rizzo, Klaus Janson, Cliff Chang, Mark Chiarello, and so just a lot of A-list talent is going to be doing this book. And so yeah, I mean, I have read the first issue, and it's off to a great start. Maybe you want to wait until the whole thing's out to just blaze through it all in one go. But so far so good. And the nice thing is that Tim Sale was able to do the covers before he died, and so
That's fortunate.
we are left
that,
with
stop doing that.
Each of these individual issues are going to have Tim Sale artwork on the covers, so that is good. And so yeah, it's off to a great start, and yeah, highly recommend all three of these books. I mean, you don't get much better than early 90s, mid 90s Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. So
oh yeah, if you enjoyed the Nolan era of Batman, if you enjoy the current era of the Batman, both were deeply informed by The Long Halloween, and I'll have to consider going to my local comic book store finally, and because I don't have something worth buying in mind that's out there currently, but this would be it. This was formative. This was one of the first things Eric Bradshaw put in my hands. It's one of the first collections I bought for myself. It's in storage presently, but I'm glad to be reminded that there's more coming. My mentionable is it's basically a coffee table book. It's something called Vermis. And what Vermis is it's a speculative, like, guidebook, like an old strategy guide for a DOS dungeon crawler that doesn't exist. It's grimdark. It's like Souls-like in its presentation, and it just gives you like artwork like this, and and then like different like character classes, and they're all very unique and bizarre. Like one is a wizard who gains his knowledge by covering his face in stones. So he loses his vision, but he gains magical abilities. You have a knight called the Princess's Nail, who must do whatever a princess says. And then you have the Waste of Life, which is hated by everybody. So like some of these classes aren't like no one would ever pick them. Like the Rat Man, become a Rat Man. That's the only description. But it gives you like great art, and like it even like is done like in the pixelated style of a DOS game from the time. And there's a couple different books, out, one covering, like dungeons and lost woods, and then another one doing temples and something else. And they're very easy to flip through, and it almost makes you wish that this game existed because it's just so interesting and compelling. And I like the notion that this is a game that was made and then destroyed and scrubbed from existence, but for the guidebook itself, because there's just something so haunted and fucked up about it. So it's by a guy named Plastiboo. That's the author's moniker that he goes by, and you can buy them from like Haunted Wood Press, which is a website. You can get prints from it, but yeah, the very limited print runs of it, I believe. So like it is hard to get, and it can get kind of spendy, but really cool, really really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at the art right now. It looks awesome, and I totally understand. I mean, as somebody, you are well known at this point for being a Warhammer 40K fan, so I can see where something like this would be like your catnip, but also like this seems to be a trend now of making things for other things that don't exist, because I don't know if have you heard about UFO 50?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, cause that's a collection of games for a console like that never existed. But
it came out, I think it came out last week, and yeah, it's a collection of 50 like NES style games for this fake video game console called the UFO. And it's a very interesting concept, a very interesting sort of springboard for making something else. And so yeah, this looks fascinating. I love the art for this.
No, and that's the thing. Like one of my never completed in process of being written stories is about this kind of thing, where these guys buy like a retro PC at like a rummage sale, and like, but this is in an alternate Fargo and the 97 flood, it's completely destroyed. So a new city called Centralia is built around it. And these guys find this old retro PC because there was a video game developer in Fargo at the time of the flood, and they were working on their masterpiece. It was going to be this redefining fantasy RPG horror game called Norden, and because of the flood, it never released. And then here in this house, they find like one of the QA testing modules. And then when they start playing it, they realize why it was a lost game, basically. Like that and I'm reminded of that idea, and I'm compelled to return to it because of this. It's in the same wheelhouse. But yeah, I better get my work started, because otherwise I'm gonna wind up like our boy Francis, and I'll be an old man before any of this stuff is ever seeing the light of day. But people probably should see Megalopolis. If for no other reason, then there's nothing else like it. And it might make your eyes glaze over, but it's pretty. Okay, I have to watch this. Oh my God, we got a screamer over here.
Oh jeez.
Okay, enough of that. But on that note, it's probably time for us to wrap up. I have two goblins that demand my attention. Thank you once again, Matt, for joining us, and thank you for anyone who watched all the way to the end. Be sure to check out Matt's Halloween movie marathon minisode, and expect another kind of spooky themed minisode on the 7th from myself, where I debate the methods I will use to resurrect certain canceled TV shows. But on that note, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Yep. See ya.